Welcome to the Mason Guard Show. Unscripted, uncensored, unapologetic. Hello world, welcome to the Mason Guard Show. I'm Scott Mason.
And I'm Edward Guard.
And we are back with another episode of On the Spot Top 5. Ed, why don't you tell the people what we're going to be doing today?
So today we decided to give you a top 5 based on the best sequels of movies that we've seen. Movies that really created a sequel that was worth watching and wasn't just a money grab for another film off of a title that was already successful. So we came up with a number of topics as we mentioned before. We picked this one out of a hat, give each other about 5 minutes to put together a list. And I'm really looking forward to see what's on your list today.
Yeah, I think this could be a good one. I'm not going to lie, I won't spoil it yet, but I'm a bit worried about what our number one showdown could be. I feel we might be in familiar territory, but I'm really curious to see where this goes.
That could happen. All
right, so that's going to be a fun one. All right, so why don't we jump right into it? Actually, I guess the one rule we should mention, no reboots, so that didn't count. So Mad Max Fury Road, for example, was one that wouldn't count, because it was basically rebooting the Mad Max franchise. However, if it was a sequel to a reboot, then it was allowed.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's jump in at number 5. Ed, what do you have at number 5?
So I decided to go with the sequel to Batman Begins, and that is The Dark Knight, where we get the legendary performance from Heath Ledger as the Joker. I think that this movie was standalone, one of the best Batman movies made. The performances in it are amazing. Christian Bale's Batman in this particular movie was great. I really enjoyed it, and so that got my number 5 spot.
Wow, a great pick. I certainly give you Heath Ledger's performance. I am, however, on the record that I hate Bale as Batman. Period. I hate the Batman voice. I'm not wearing hockey pads. I can't take it seriously. Give me Michael Keaton back. I'm sorry. That's the Batman I was raised on. That's always going to be my Batman.
So I'm going to agree with you that the best Batman is Michael Keaton. We can talk about that later at another time. But at the end of the day, I thought as a sequel to a movie that was successful, I found The Dark Knight to be a great sequel that wasn't just a money grab off of one movie that was successful.
All right, I can see that. This is tough because mine, you could argue, is a money grab, but I think if anything, I'm going to argue it's more of a correction. And this is 1987's Evil Dead 2.
So why?
Why? All right. So for those of you who don't know, Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, and then the third sequel, Army of Darkness, are directed by Sam Raimi, who did the Spider-Man movies and a number of other great things. The first Evil Dead was made as a legit horror movie, but ended up being more unintentionally hilarious than scary. Evil Dead 2 said, well, let's lean right into that, kind of retold a very similar story, added a few more characters, leaned right into the comedy, and made what is one of the funniest horror movies you will ever see in your life.
I don't know. That one's just a joke, though. Like,
that's exactly what I'm saying. They leaned into that. You have Bruce Campbell at his absolute peak. You know, he's gone on, he's done some great stuff, but this is Bruce Campbell at his funniest. The scene where he fights his own hand may be one of the best bits of physical comedy ever enacted on film.
I don't know, but you lay that up. Okay, so yes, great scene, but put that up against the entire performance of Heath Ledger. Everything that he did in this movie was fantastic. How far he went into this character. How he
Too far.
Okay, well, fine. But even to this day, which movie is a better movie?
If you ask me what I'm going to sit down and watch on a Saturday afternoon, I would put on Evil Dead 10 times before I put on The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is heavy. There's a lot to it. It drags you down. Evil Dead, you are just laughing from start to finish. The Deadites, the Dead by Dawn, Dead by Dawn. There's so many great things in this movie. It isn't just the one scene. When he puts the chainsaw on his arm for the first time, that's so cool. Like, Evil Dead 2. I don't know, man. Maybe you need to revisit this movie because this movie is so good.
I don't know. Maybe I do. I mean, it's really outside of the genre that I typically look at. I like horror movies, as discussed before, are not my thing.
Not mine either. And that's why I love this comedy one.
And then a weak comedy version of a horror movie. Oh, that pains me. To be like, to take away a spot from what was an amazing performance, probably the best performance that Heath Ledger put out there. Oh, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I can't actually take over The Dark Knight. Yeah. I had to argue that for a little bit because if there are people out there who haven't seen The Evil Dead 2, I honestly recommend it. Again, know that they were going for schlock and comedy, and you are going to have yourself a great time watching that movie. But sure, when it comes to real quality, The Dark Knight absolutely deserves that spot.
The Dark Knight. All right.
I love that I strung you along for a while,
God. I thought
thinking I was going to try to take that down.
I was like, oh my, we're just going to have to stop recording and really deal with this.
Settle this outside.
Okay, so let's move on to our number 4 spot. What did you have?
All right, so number 4, I have a movie that some people may not even know is a sequel, and this is Desperado, starring Antonio Banderas.
Right, yes. This is the one where they're like shooting out of the guitar case.
Out of the guitar
right?
case, yeah. This is an action movie to end all action movies. Was made on a shoestring budget, and when you see what they do with a shoestring budget, it's actually really remarkable. It is based on a movie called El Mariachi, which I actually recommend the entire trilogy. It's El Mariachi, Desperado, and then Once Upon a Time in Mexico. All 3 fantastic movies by Robert Rodriguez, who is a fantastic director, especially when it comes to action. And whenever he gets Banderas, magic happens.
Absolutely. Actually, a really good film. I really enjoyed that one. I mean, I don't remember too much of it, but I do remember really enjoying it. And the shooting out of the guitar case scene is just super memorable. It's just amazing. But I'm sorry to say this, Scott. I chose a Steven Spielberg movie for my number 4 spot. I chose Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade at number 4.
The Last Crusade, not Temple of Doom.
Not
right?
Temple of Doom, not Temple of Doom. But this one brings in Sean Connery as Harrison Ford's father, and it's just an amazing movie throughout. It's the fight against the Nazis. Every scene Sean Connery's in is amazing. The whole searching for like the book that he's got and all the clues and finding the Templars and everything. Just an amazing movie. The scene where Sean Connery takes down the plane with the birds and his umbrella, just super memorable. An amazing film, and that got my number 4 spot.
So I get it. I do. I don't know that it holds that much of a spot for me. This movie wasn't that big for me. Temple of Doom was the Indiana Jones that
Really?
I adored and just absorbed. Of course, the first one as well, but Temple of Doom was probably the one I'd say I watched the most. Last Crusade just never really made a mark on me as a kid. Sean Connery didn't mean anything to, 8-year-old, 9-year-old me. So I guess that kind of got lost in the fold for me. Whereas, again, I can put on Desperado right now and just enjoy myself. I don't know if I could say the same about Last Crusade, believe it or not.
I don't know about that. The train scene, when you start to understand Indiana Jones and why he has his name, that it was the name of the dog. Also, the fact that he's a fear of snakes and where that developed from, that he didn't fear snakes at the start, but because he fell in that pit on the train, the car full of snakes, and there's just so many amazing scenes that explain the character and his development throughout. I just think it was an amazing sort of where that movie franchise should have ended, maybe. But
now that's a fair argument.
Definitely a great sequel and a great end to that trilogy.
I don't know. I feel if, giving that backstory stuff that you talk about, that's the start of, movies that just try to play on nostalgia. That's why we got the Kessel Run in the Solo movie. Maybe I'm gonna blame Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade for all that. I think I might be stretching the truth here to try to win this argument.
I think that you are.
But let me give a bit more argument for Desperado if I can, then, because there are some amazing action sequences. There is the one where him and Salma Hayek are climbing on the outside of the building, and if I'm remembering correctly, I think they're handcuffed together, which is just what makes that so exciting. Swinging on ropes, climbing out on like balconies that are very, very thin. There's some fantastic stuff. The performances, the pyrotechnics, and again, when you watch this and remember it was made for no money and like over 12 days or something remarkable like that. Like, I just wish I'd had more time to research because Desperado is such a pinnacle action movie.
Oh, I don't remember it enough to argue this.
It's, again, Indiana Jones, it's just not the best of the Indiana Jones. I don't think you can improve on that first movie, so I don't think this fits for your argument of what makes a great sequel, whereas Desperado takes everything that was good in El Mariachi, turns it up to 11, and really brings home what makes a best sequel.
I don't know, man. I'm gonna. I can't give up.
I know it hurts. Ed,
The Last Crusade over a movie I barely remember.
Well, that's your problem. You just need to see Desperado again, and you would not have a problem losing this fight. It really is that good. And again, yours does not improve on the original. There's going to be my argument.
But Sean Connery, though.
No, but Sean Connery. Connery's done some real stinkers, too, let's be honest.
I am going to
League
watch
of Extraordinary
Desperado.
Gentlemen, anyone?
Don't mention that. I'm going to watch Desperado before we release this, and if it's terrible, I'm just going to delete this file.
You're going to edit this while I'm away. Now Scott wins.
Okay. I feel like I want to call it a tie, but I'm not going to. I'm going to give you Desperado.
I'm claiming Desperado.
And I'm going to watch it.
All right.
And this may never air.
Hopefully people will get to hear this. All right, well, let's move on to number 3 before you change your mind. What do you have at number 3?
So I have another great movie. My number 3 spot, I have a Die Hard movie, and I went with Die Hard with a Vengeance.
If I may, just for a second, Ed, at number 3, I have Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Oh, amazing. Okay, so no argument needed here. Jeremy Irons putting on a performance of,
so good.
Amazing villain, ties the story together. They connected it to the first story with him being his brother. Mm-hmm. Samuel L. Jackson puts on an amazing...
so much to the formula. And I think that's why this made this list for me, is Sam Jackson takes the John McClane formula and adds so much. He's a guy who can go toe-to-toe. He doesn't just, get scared of John or get intimidated by him. He's a guy who stands toe-to-toe with John McClane and lives to tell the tale.
Yeah, he's an antagonistic character and just pushes him. And just so many fantastic scenes throughout this movie. Just creative. It changed the format of how they were going to do a Die Hard movie. Mm-hmm. They opened it up to the full world, and it was just a great sequel that I really enjoyed, and I'm glad that we don't have to argue over this spot.
Yeah, this was going to be a tough one for me to give up. I was going to dig my heels on this one for sure. I love the use of ants marching to kind of set that music theme throughout the movie. Again, it's a kid's song, but they somehow make it feel so foreboding.
Amazing.
Yeah, fantastic.
Such a good film. I mean, if you haven't seen this movie, which I'm sure everybody who's listening has, it's worth your time. Check that one out.
Absolutely. Let's move on to number 2.
What do you have at number 2?
All right, number 2, I have a movie that I'm going to say, it may be a bit of a bold statement considering how successful this franchise is, but I think saved a franchise from what could have been a disaster. And I'm talking about Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Okay.
So the first 2 Harry Potters are okay.
They're very much kids movies.
They are kids movies. They're very, dry. They're vanilla. There's nothing exciting. There's nothing daring. But then the third movie comes along. Alfonso Cuarón takes over the helmet director and just revolutionizes what a Harry Potter movie can be. Changes it to very dark themes. Adds kind of that young adult element, not full adult at this point, but just young adults. You have Gary Oldman doing that amazing performance as Sirius Black, and I think this, again, if this movie hadn't have kind of taken this direction, the Harry Potter franchise might not have made it to 7/8 films.
Yeah, I completely agree. I actually considered Harry Potter for my list. I didn't end up using it, but one thing that they did amazingly with this entire franchise is it grew up with its audience.
Oh, so well.
Which is so incredible that you can create a kids movie, which is the first one, and as those kids grew up waiting for the next one, and they got older and the themes got more adult, and they grew with their audience, which is incredible. I'm going to stop arguing your point there.
What do you have at number 2
My
then?
number 2 spot went to Back to the Future Part 3. And I'm going to say...
Whoa.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to tell you why I chose Part 3. Back to the Future 1 and 2, fantastic movies. But I do believe that they were intended to be 1 and 2. Like, there was no expectation that there wasn't going to be a part 2. I think that most of the filming happened back to back. It all went together so smoothly. Amazing movies, 1 and 2. Number 3 is a true sequel, a new story, and they actually created something that was really, really enjoyable to me. Now, I really love this movie for a few reasons. There's some music throughout, especially when they're at sort of they're at like a hoedown, I guess. There's a music theme in there that I could sing right now. I'm not going to. But
oh, come on, give us just a taste.
I'm not going to. But you know, amazing film you made. It was one of the first sort of, for me, like a comedy western with time travel. Christopher Lloyd's just amazing in it. I love the whole trilogy. But yeah, that's why I went with Back to the Future Part 3.
I feel like you made my argument for me with comedy western with time travel.
I know.
I think maybe if you'd named 2, you'd have a fight in this, but you named 3, man. That is absolutely the worst of the bunch.
I don't believe that.
This doesn't improve on the formula in any way, shape, or form. Western was not what this franchise needed in any way, shape, or form. I think you've made a brutal mistake here. I mean, we were talking Prisoner of Azkaban. Gary Oldman, again, as Sirius Black is so good, but then you also have, I can't remember the guy who plays Proudfoot. Or, nope, not Proudfoot. Oh, the professor, Lupin.
Okay, yeah.
Lupin is fantastic in this movie. And again, this is where the kids really started to get good in their performances. And I think that is because of the director of Alfonso Cuarón. And again, this literally saved a franchise. Yours killed one.
You know what? You shut your mouth.
Yeah, give it to me. I can hear it already. The
Scott,
defeat is in your
ignorant
voice.
Slut. Okay. So, I want to say, before I agree to anything here, that the Harry Potter books were being released one after the other. The movies were being made. There was always intention to do... Okay, I give up. Whatever, Back to the Future Part 2 is still a great movie. We're going to move on.
We'll have to have this conversation another time. But at least I know I don't have to worry about a repeat of a previous top 5 because Back to the Future is eliminated, because my number 1 is going to be Empire Strikes Back, and I was worried we were going to have to do Star Wars versus Back to the Future again.
Okay, so tell me why Empire Strikes Back is your number 1 spot.
I mean, I think a lot of it is self-explanatory when it comes to taking the original and improving on it. All the drama got hiked up. We really started to see a deeper understanding of the universe when we have the reveal that Vader is Luke's father and how they're interconnected. And I think that brought such a serious weight. You have the introduction of Boba Fett to the series, one of the more iconic characters that exists, even if it's a very, very small role and appearance. You have Lando Calrissian, starts to show in this, when you have Billy D. Williams. And that whole Cloud City sequence, I think, again, no one can argue that there's just some of the best sci-fi ever shot that happens there. Even in the special edition, I like some of the changes they've made to the scenery to kind of add to that. I think that's where George Lucas got a little bit... He didn't get overboard. He didn't go overboard with it like some of the stuff he did with A New Hope. So yeah, I think Empire Strikes Back really is just the one that takes that original and improves it most people hold that as the best of the Star Wars movie. Not one to argue.
Okay, well, great, because I also chose Empire Strikes Back for my number one spot.
You made me argue it, you asshole.
I probably could not do as good of a description of any of the Star Wars movies as you just did right there. Your love for them is amazing, but I also agree, like, from a sequel, Empire Strikes Back is amazing. I don't want to talk about all the other Star Wars movies right now, but I do think Empire Strikes Back took what was an amazing first movie, Star Wars, and then came with a film that blew it out of the water. One of my favorites for sure, and it got my number one spot as well.
Yeah, we didn't even mention the Hoth battle, or there's so many things I could go on when it comes to Empire Strikes Back. Thankfully, I don't have to argue that one. Wow, I can't believe we had two identical
crossovers there. Yeah,
I did think with sequels there was a chance of that. There were a few movies that I thought might make my list, but I left off thinking there was a chance they might make yours. Terminator 2, for example, was one of the ones I'm surprised neither one of us picked.
Yeah, I had Terminator 2 on my list as well. I also had Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire.
Alfred Molina's Doc Ock is fantastic.
Absolutely. The best of that trilogy for sure.
Yeah, I had Captain America Winter Soldier was another one that I thought really improved on the formula. And then my dark horse that I didn't think was ever actually going to make my list, but I wrote it down. It was Return to Oz. I don't know if you remember that movie, but that scared the shit out of me as a kid.
Weird.
And that's why I wanted to kind of talk about it, but I couldn't. I'll have to fit it into another top 5 at some point.
I also had the Bourne movies on my list.
Oh, nice.
Those movies just kept getting better, in my opinion, from an action perspective.
See, I disagree, actually. I think the more they got deeper into it, the more shaky cam they got, and that's where you lose me in an action movie, is shaky cam.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan, honestly, of the later Bournes.
Well, good thing I didn't put them on my list then.
I would have fought hard against that.
I really did enjoy them, but yeah, I mean, like, let's summarize this. Some great picks. I know we crossed over a few times there, but so number 5 went to The Dark Knight. Number 4 went to Desperado. Number 3,
Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Number 2,
Prisoner of Azkaban.
And The Empire Strikes Back at the number 1 spot.
Rightfully so. All right, guys, thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of On Spot Top 5. I'm Scott Mason.
And I'm Edward Gard.
Let us know which one of your favorite sequels didn't make the list. What would you put in there? Perhaps The Godfather. You can email us at TheMasonGardShow@gmail.com or hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter @MasonGardShow. Thank you so much for listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe. All of it helps us very much, guys. We do appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.